somebody, let's say, doesn't text for a day, and that triggers a wound inside me. Now, I think what most people do wrong, maybe not the right word, but most people have not learned to say, when you do this, whatever your motivation might be, I feel this. Not you hurt me because, or you hurt me by,
Right.
but just kind of going, okay, you do this thing, which is inherent to you. But when you do that, I feel this. And so I think when I work with individuals, it's more about going back to childhood usually and figuring out why that is a trigger.
Yeah.
Right. And it's usually something like, my dad traveled a lot. And when I was a child, I didn't understand that all I understood is he's gone, because I have no concept of he'll be back in a week. Right.
Yeah.
And all I have is this feeling of fear and loss, because the person that I'm attached to is suddenly no longer available to me. Right. And now every time that I'm with a partner who disappears, it's that little person inside of me that goes, danger, danger, and starts getting panicked and anxious, and then almost makes it so much about themselves that they point the finger and say, you wanted to hurt me.
Right.
Instead of going, oh, I need to have a conversation. I need to understand why you withdraw. And usually that's a trigger in them, right? And so, and then we can have a conversation about how to manage the withdrawing and the anxiety. But I think the most important thing is, and I think triggers is such an interesting word, because triggers are also good things. When I give you a gift and your love language is gifts, then I'm going to trigger a good feeling in you, right? So triggers are not just bad feelings, they're also good feelings, right? So when I have an artichoke, my favorite food, also back to childhood trauma, I'm just joking, it's just my favorite food. Like the smell triggers a good, happy feeling in me, right? So we have to remember that we're always pointing out only the negative triggers in our partners, and we rarely tend to look at the positive triggers that they have. And so, but I do think in this scenario, it would then have to be a conversation around, I'm not judging you for it, I'm not angry at you for it, I just want to understand it more, because when this happens to you, then this happens to me. And I think what happens to most people in relationships is, at one point when the hurt is so big, then people start to become angry. And then it's almost like it flips the switch to, I've asked you so many times not to disappear on me, and you apologize, but you don't change your behavior. Now you're doing it on purpose, and now you want to hurt me. And you know what? Now I know your triggers, so I'm going to hurt you right back so that you feel what I feel, so you can finally stop hurting me.
Right.
Which never works, because now if I've caused pain to the other person, then they're going to have the pain, then they're going to cause extra pain to me. So now I have more pain, and then it starts to break down. And that's why I love when people come into couples counseling before it's like massively broken down. Because when I teach them, if someone does something and you feel something, those are two unrelated things. And now you have to talk about it. So if this person is always withdrawing, I need to have a conversation around, why do you withdraw? What triggers you? What do I do that makes you feel like you want to hide? And then also, when you do hide, it makes me feel this. And then, of course, you can go into, if let's say you're really kind of at this is a 10 for me and this is a 10 for me, then we go into, how do I deal with my own trigger? How do I self-soothe? How do I take that little 4-year-old or 3-year-old that didn't understand why the dad was suddenly gone, not understanding he was on a business trip and he would be back in a week, right? How do I work with that little part of me to give that part a sense of, it's okay, I'm here. The adult me is here. I've got you. I'm not going to leave you. I'm going to be here consistently for you. But that's like a process, right, of learning to calm your own.
You have to self-soothe the inner child.
Yeah.
Wow, I never actually thought about that. And that, because you're always thinking your partner needs to soothe you.
Right.
I'm feeling this stress that you are causing me because of my previous wound, even though you're not really causing it. It's my wound that is amplifying.
Triggered.
Right.
Yeah. And so I think that ideally, I mean, we all had trauma in whichever way, right? We got lost in a supermarket, right? Whatever. And so it's always about going back to that time and figuring out who you were at that time. And obviously, as a 3-year-old, I might not have the words to get the support that I need. But now, knowing myself, I can sit with that part of me and kind of go, like a babysitter, right? Whatever, or a parent, like reparenting myself, kind of go, but I'm here now. And it's kind of fun. I sometimes do this.
That's quite nice.
Yeah, and I do this with my parts, right? Where sometimes right before I fall asleep or right before I wake up, there's kind of that creative space, right? And so I oftentimes imagine the different versions of me, and I have little like interactions with them. And like I'll hang out with my 16-year-old because she's really cool, or I'll like hang out with my little 3-year-old and we'll go get ice cream.
Like everyone loves their 16-year-old self.
Yeah, well, most people do, yeah, because she was fun and didn't care, and she didn't have so much responsibility. Lucky her. No, but it is kind of it's a really nice experience, and I find that it helps with, like, depending on the person, it helps with visual cues. So for example, looking at a picture of yourself at that age where you can kind of visually connect with that little child. Or I also find it really helps playing with children, if you like children, because it almost brings you back to your own child, and now you get to like be a child and play. So kind of getting in touch happens in like more creative ways. And that's how then if you recognize the trigger, then you can't make it about the other person anymore. Then you have to make it about yourself. And then it also makes you very resilient in relationships, because now you're not looking for someone to heal the parts, because now you can heal the parts. Now you're genuinely looking for someone with whom you can have a happy, stable, secure relationship.
So when two people start, and it's the love, what do you call it? Honeymoon phase. Yeah, the in-love phase. For the first 6 months to a year, you would see that there's very minimal fighting, because you still don't really know each other. You're still trying to portray yourself a certain way. Say they were to even do things that would trigger your wound, you are able to stop it because you don't really want them
to see that
side of you, right?
Exactly.
So that person thinks, oh, she's so perfect. And in your head, you're thinking, oh, wait.
Yes, I know.
So when is it to that point? Why do people all of a sudden feel so comfortable to say, you know what? I've spent enough time with you. I've shown you this perfect side of myself. Now I'm really going to show you my inner, troubles. And now that you've done something that you've done before, didn't trigger me, but today it's going to trigger me. Where was that barrier that was all of a sudden unleashed?
I think that we do this wrong, right? Let's use a different example. There was this whole movement, right, where people were like, on a first date, don't go to some high-end expensive restaurant, go to IKEA.
Oh.
Because if you do something that's every day, like going to IKEA, going to the supermarket, right? You get to see that person in a natural environment. When you go to a nice date, like a high-end restaurant, you're seeing that person. Yeah, exactly. And so it's kind of, and I think that the difficulty, let's say you had this trigger that happened in other relationships as well. Now you know it's there, right? I do think this is something that you need to walk into the relationship with. And you need to spell it out. You need to say, listen, I really like a lot of contact. I have this attachment wound from my childhood, and I get really, really stressed when somebody isn't around. How do you feel about being in touch a lot, right? It becomes, again, more like a job interview than like, okay, I'm going to show only the best side of myself because I really want this person to like me, to I'm going to show you who I really am. And if you then think we could be a match, then at least we know what we're getting into.
Yeah. Or you could warn them, say, hey, I know I look like this right now and I behave like this right now, but at some point, I won't be this.
But I think it's like I think that it would be like being honest on a resume, right? Like you just say all the good stuff, but also the bad stuff, right? So like, for example, I took a year sabbatical where I wasn't working. Most people kind of gloss over that because they want the potential future employer to go like, oh, see, they had a continuous, I think it's about feeling comfortable enough with yourself to be open from the beginning. And I think that most of us didn't learn to do that because most of us saw how we should be. And then we did that. Don't be too clingy. Don't be too open. Don't, tell them about your issues or your ex-boyfriends or all of that stuff. Like, be the perfect version, which, to be fair, not everybody's looking for that. That's your own perfect version of your own self. And now you're going out showing somebody that, which the right person might not even want.
Yeah, I think now a lot of people, in my experience, are looking for the imperfections, and they like those rather than because it's so common now for everyone to be perfect. You want the uncommon thing.
Yes, which I think is lovely, because I think that we're all different and we should all celebrate our differences, because nobody wants to be with a computer, right? Nobody wants to be with, or like a, like a magazine poster.
Right.
That's not people. I think people love their partner for the things that makes their partner unique, not for the things that makes their partner perfect. And if you're with someone who wants you to always be perfect, then that puts it to question, well, what is our real relationship? Is it genuine, or is it just you like the way I look?
Yeah. Why, when two people get in a fight and say something's been triggered, a wound, and now this person in front of them is no longer their partner, but their enemy and danger and all of that, it's so hard to kind of soothe yourself, because that person is trying to soothe you, but now you're just thinking this person is trying to find a way to manipulate me, to stop me from feeling what I'm feeling, and this anger and protection is me, right? It's my form of I'm realizing a pattern. This person has triggered it, right? Now, say you go your separate way for that moment to calm down. One person really is trying to talk to you, to explain to you, hey, this is what happened, but you feel this is making it worse and I need my space. That person feels she wants space from me, and that is hurting me because she doesn't want to talk to me. But him talking to me is making it worse because I need that space. When one person needs to deal with a difficult situation by requiring space, but the other one really wants to talk. For example, I can't go to sleep if we're fighting. I need us to sort it out. But I can't sort it out with you until I wake up in the morning and I feel better. There's no way to meet each other's needs, because you need different things, and it's hurting each other by doing the opposite.
I think this also comes with an awareness. So ideally, you wouldn't have this conversation in the middle of a fight. You would have this conversation in when we're good and we're just talking, and it's kind of like, so how do you deal with conflict in a relationship? Like, if let's say we had a fight right before bed, how would you deal with it? And you'd be like, well, actually, I'd really like to resolve it before I go to bed. I'm like, oh, that's different from me, because if it was me, I would want to sleep on it and then kind of talk it through the next morning. I don't know if anyone can actually do that, but
no, but you know why? It's because when arguments happen in the evening, I think they're more likely to happen in the evening, because you're tired
and your brain's not
exactly. So you're more emotional and you're not really in the mood to, hear the other person and make things better. You're just really upset and it's not going to go away. So it doesn't matter how many conversations you have in that moment. It's actually tiring you even more. To the point is, just leave me. Let me wake up with a fresh mind and let's talk about it.
And I think that so fights in general, and I think most people have a hard time implementing this, right? If I'm in the middle of a fight and I'm not seeing clearly and the other person isn't seeing clearly, and we're basically going around and around in circles and it's just aggressive, right? Ideally, what psychologists say is, you have a safe word. Someone says the safe word, which means, okay, let's stop. We separate each other from each other. One person takes a walk, the other person takes a cold shower, or whatever. And then we come back together after a set amount of time, half an hour, whatever. And then we try to resolve the issue again, right? So I think that there might be some value. I just think that most people kind of learned as children, you never go to bed mad, right? But at the same time, if it's going to be unproductive, and you know that you have an early meeting tomorrow morning, and now this conversation is going to go until 4 a.m. and it's never going to be resolved, there does need to be this moment where you're like, okay, we need to stop and do this another time. But I think this too, and it sounds like I'm making relationships very cerebral, but to a certain extent I am, because I think that self-soothing is really important. I think what's really important is benefit of the doubt, because you mentioned manipulation, right? I don't know if people manipulate as much as we think people manipulate. I think that a lot of time it just comes from their triggers and what they need.
But we're constantly worried if somebody is doing it.
And this is where I think most people aren't, like, take a psychopath. Yeah, he's definitely doing it on purpose, right? But take most normal people, and they're just trying to fix something that's causing them pain. And it's rarely a conscious manipulation. It's I need something that's different than what you need. And I'm pushing you to give me what I need, and you're pushing me to give you what you need. And that's, I think, where we have to remember that the other person is navigating something difficult as well, and I'm navigating something difficult as well, and I need someone's support, and they need someone's support, and so it becomes a really wobbly situation.
Yeah.
But I think remembering that most people are in a relationship because they want to be in a relationship, not because they want to manipulate someone.
Right, but now if we take that and say you're in a long-term marriage,
right?
Now you're secure in something, and it's no longer really about I want to be in a relationship. You're already in it. You've kind of accepted that this is my partner. You love them, you don't love them, you're in it, right? Years down the line, say you never really communicated with each other when something upset you and you've bottled everything. And it's gotten to the point 25, 30 years later, as a woman, you've gone through so many changes. Now it's like you've lost your mind and you're releasing all this anger, and your partner's looking at you thinking,
I never do.
Are you okay? What happened? Where do you even start? Everything has been bottled, right? To the point where you cannot start to name small things that has happened in the past because it doesn't make sense, right? And then there is all this anger, and you're looking at your partner and thinking, there's all this pain attached from all the past, and it feels like your world is melting and there's no recovery. So how does a relationship navigate that? Because you said it's really good when two people come in before all of this happens.
That would make everything easy.
So what happens when two people come in like that?
I mean, so that what I find is that it's rarely unrelated things that cause people to be triggered and then feel anger, right? It's usually the same thing, but sometimes in a different mask. So it'll usually be something really deep, like you never choose me, but it could come from you bought me a gift that I didn't really want, right? Or you don't really love me, right? So there's usually like an underlying pain that, and I think that, anger is an interesting one for me because depending on who you read, but a lot of people will say sadness, pain is a vulnerable feeling, and most people will mask the vulnerable with a more dominant feeling, which is anger. And so a lot of times when you look past the anger, you find pain and hurt and sadness. And so it's about filtering down through all that anger and kind of going, what is it that you're actually hurting because of? Because when you get to that, then you can start talking to the other person and going, all the times that you didn't put your wife first really caused her pain. The time you cheated on her reinforced that, and now she's carrying even more of that. And because you never worked on the cheating with someone like me, let's say, that pain has just festered and gotten really, really big, right? And then for me, it's, going back in and teasing out all those situations, the detrimental ones. And it's fun. I mean, like when I see couples, I tend to see them, well, depending on them, but oftentimes I'll see both of them separately to get to know both of them individually, to then see why they have difficulties with each other. And when I see them individually, I can work down to what is the pain underneath the anger. And then I can start working with them, and ideally, and in many cases, both people want to make it work, right? And
if they've come to therapy,
Yes, and exactly, but they have to come. Well, they don't have to come to therapy.
No, but that's the step. That's the step to saying that I want to make it work.
But I do find that when there's years and years and years of resentment that's built up, a lot of people don't want to work on themselves. They just want the other person to work on them and finally be the person that they wanted them to be, which that takes us back to compatibility, right?
I think it's more painful for someone to actually sit with themselves and unravel all of that. I think that is the most painful thing.
I think it's painful, but it's also very liberating because now...
Eventually.
And it can be painful depending on what the memories are that are triggered, right? But I do think that it gives you a feeling of inner peace once you've mastered, I'm going to say, all of your inner triggers, or like resolved them to a large part, or even you're just aware of them and you realize that the other person triggering you is not because the other person wanted to trigger you, it's because it was triggered within you. Then you suddenly have, like, I'm going to say, a bit of a superpower, because you're now no longer
strength. You have control.
Yes, and not even control, it's resolved, right? So a lot of the triggers that cause us pain, when we resolve them, then it's not even control, because you don't have to control it, it's just not there anymore.